Here she is now, Hellen Degeneres. All right, welcome y'all. How's everyone doing today? Okay, great. So this week is all about our nurses. Nurses are like the unsung heroes of healthcare. They're with the patients every single day, making sure that healthcare plan is followed. So this week, we're going to dedicate the entire week to those hardworking, underappreciated nurses out there. But first, let's have a little dance.
I don't wanna know who's taking you home. I'm loving you so. The way I used to love you, no, I don't wanna know who's taking you home.
So, I have a confession to make, guys. I don't go to the doctor's office or to healthcare professionals as often as I really should. Last time I was there, the nurses were having a huge laugh at me and I really couldn't figure out why. They handed me this cup and said, this urine cup, and they said, the bathroom's around the corner, there you go. So I walked in and I came back out and handed the cup back empty and said, hey, I didn't really need it, there's toilets in there. Alright, but I obviously understand that nursing is so much more than just collecting urine samples. There's so much to it. So to show us what nursing is really about, let's welcome out our three special guests for today. Very famous nursing theorists, Afaf Malaise, Betty Newman, and Florence Nightingale. Alright guys, so thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Alright, so just to get an idea of nursing for everyone and for myself as well, what does nursing mean to you?
Well, for me, nursing really focuses on the transitions that patients and their families go through. You know, patients go through a lot of changes through their care plans. They can go from surgery down to CT scans, and really I want to focus on making that transition very smooth and memorable for the patient.
Okay, awesome. I really wish I had that around when I decided to go vegan. That was a crazy transition from eating meat to nothing. But Miss Betty, what does nursing mean to you?
To me, nursing means that it's an action to assist individuals and families and groups to maintain their level of health and well-being. And honestly, stress is one of the biggest things that can affect a patient or client system in the hospital, whether it's just emotional, physical, or whatever the stress is, it just impacts them and ultimately it just lowers their level of health. So honestly, just being that nurse for them and reducing all that stress for them ultimately gives them a better, stable health situation.
That's really interesting. That explains why I'm sick all the time. I'm just stressed, I guess. That makes a lot of sense. And what does it mean to you?
So nursing to me is really based on healing, public health, infection control, and just maintaining cleanliness. So I think that environment is a really big part of nursing healing. I think that you need to have a stable environment, a clean environment where it can restore your health, basically. And as I was a young girl, I was really interested in philanthropy, and I would always help the neighbors in my village who were ill and who were poor and couldn't afford that health care. And that to me, just the environment they were in, it was just a big part of the whole healing process. So that's the main focus of my nursing.
That's really interesting. So you guys are all nurses, but you have such different meanings of nursing to you. So how did you all come up with such different theories? Why don't we start with you, Afaf?
So my theory is the transition theory, and I derived it from my days when I was teaching. So I taught different students, teachers, and clinicians that were striving for leadership roles. So I really focused, and I wanted them to really focus on the transition that they face through their learning path, and I wanted it to be smooth and memorable for them. And I also derived my theory off of two main theorists. So Dr. Ralph Turner, who focused on the role theory, he really looked at your role as a nurse, that you're looking towards your patients and making sure that their transition through the healthcare is smooth. Also, whatever role that they're looking for. So if they come into the hospital, wanting to build on their parenting skills, like mothers come into the maternity ward that need to learn how to breastfeed their new mothers. So really focus on the different roles and the different departments in the hospital. And then I also looked at Harper's ways of knowing, through the different ways of knowing she had. So I really focused on the personal ways of knowing, that focused on, the lived experiences of the patient and really, building that therapeutic nurse-client relationship. So those two are the main ones that helped me to derive my transition theory.
Awesome, that's really interesting. Betty, did you have similar experiences, or did you derive it from something
It
different?
was similar to Abbas in the sense that her theory derived from a teaching tool. Initially, mine was also a teaching tool, and it was just honestly used to help nursing students, just give them a touch basis on what this nursing course was about. And so my whole theory focused on looking at the client situation as a whole, as a holistic, comprehensive approach, and viewing all the different aspects, because every client is unique, right? Every client has their own stressors. They all face them in different ways. So basically pushing that was very important in my theory. And then also looking at 3 steps, nursing diagnosis, outcomes, and goals. And basically those 3 steps just help the nurse to identify the stressors and the strengths that the client is facing at the time. And then we'll assist and work with the client in order to help facilitate them into maintaining a state of wellness. And then lastly, we implement the 3 preventions, so the primary, secondary, tertiary preventions as each mentions. And altogether, when we use this theory, it just gives the client a sense of, okay, if I'm ever faced with this stress again, I know how to react now. And it just, again, keeps their health at an equilibrium.
Awesome, so you're arming them with ways that they can stay healthy. That's really interesting. And Florence, what about you?
Mine was a little different. Basically, I'm a very religious person, and to me, God spoke to me on 4 different occasions, basically asking if I was willing and able to take care of the sick. And I thought to myself that this was a service to God as well as a service to humanity, and obviously I wanted to do it to make God proud. The main focus for mine was during the Crimean War, when I realized that so many deaths were occurring, and that a lot of these deaths were occurring due to the fact of the unsanitary conditions in the hospital, not due to the wounds and everything that the soldiers went through on the field. And so to me, I had to provide that cleanliness and maintain that environment where healing could actually occur, and just change everything up so that all those unnecessary deaths were going away. And at the end of it, there was actually a very big decrease in the amount of deaths due to the unsanitary conditions on the field.
Awesome, that's very interesting. That's so interesting that you guys all had such different experiences throughout life, but it all led you to nursing and all led you to have such very interesting and helpful nursing theories. So we're going to take a break right now, but after the break, we're actually going to hear from a patient that wrote into me about her experiences in nursing. So let's just take a quick break and we'll be back right after that. Welcome back to the Hellen Degeneres Show. Before we get on to meeting our next guest for today, I just wanted to show you guys a little clip of what we had going on during the break. It turns out these nurses can really dance.
Okay, girls. Walked in this party, these girls looking at me. Skinny jeans on, you know my hands in. Hey, okay. I want y'all to do this dance now. Choose on that beat. Choose on that beat. Choose on that beat. Choose on that beat. Now slide, chop, hit the horn, don't stop, hey. Don't stop, hey. Don't stop, hey. Run a man on that beat. 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 Now do your dance, do your dance, do your dance, hey. You your daddy's son, hey.
Hey, do you know that, guys? Settle down. We know these nurses can move, but let's get on to our bit more of a serious topic now, okay? So I had a letter written into me about last week. I'm just going to read you guys some of it because it really touched me and showed sort of what sort of nurses can do for people. It can really change people's lives. So 33-year-old Shantae Barnes wrote into me last week. She wrote about her alcohol dependence. She has sickle cell anemia. She had 5 sickle cell crises in the last year, which are very painful. She's been hospitalized 8 times in the last year. And she wrote to me and said that nurses changed her life. So let's bring Shantae out here so that she can share her story and really show with us what those nurses really did for her. All right, so Shantae, if you want to come on out.
J.R. Sean Kingston. You're way too beautiful, girl. That's why it'll never work. You have me suicidal, suicidal. When you said it's over, damn all these beautiful girls.
All right, Shantae, thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's no problem.
So how are you feeling now?
So much better, honestly. I'm so grateful.
Great, I'm really glad to hear that. So do you want to share with us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, well, as you guys all know, I kind of have a little bit of an alcohol dependence. I have a kid. Things have been really bad, actually. Like, I've been moving from shelter to shelter for most of my, adult life. I didn't go to school. I actually had my son, Billy, really, really young. Father's no longer in the picture. Working is very hard because he is so young and he needs me. And I don't have that much family in Canada. So time was actually really, really hard. When I started to actually experience these sickling crises, I didn't know what to do. And being by myself, moving from shelter to shelter, I started applying for welfare, and then I finally got a basement apartment. And it really wasn't the best environment. It was actually quite dirty. But, the alcohol really got me through it. Billy was kind of difficult. He cried a lot. And it was actually really hard overall. I couldn't work. I didn't really know what to do at one point. So after getting in and out of the hospital for a bit, because of all the alcohol, because of all the, neglect that I was giving Billy, my landlord actually ended up calling social service on me, and Billy was taken away, and I'm trying to fight it. I really am, but we're really working on that right now.
Okay, and in your letter, you wrote that nurses really helped change your life. So do you want to share with us a little bit about that and how that happened?
Of course, nurses are the whole reason why I'm here. I'm so grateful. When did it start? It was my last sickling crisis, right after little Billy was taken away from me. I actually had the most severe crisis ever. I didn't know what I was experiencing. My hands were swollen. When I went to the hospital, they told me that there was blood in my spleen. My liver was damaged. I was tired. Honestly, I feel like at that point in time, it was actually best that Billy was taken away. So when I went to the hospital, I honestly thought people would judge me because of the type of mother that I was, and because I wasn't put together. I was kind of dirty. It was bad. But they treated me with so much love and care. I've never experienced that before. I wasn't judged. They cared for me. They talked to me. At one point in time, I was actually crying because I missed Billy so much. And I understood, and they let me know that it was going to be okay. They even connected me with some social service workers, and they helped me connect with all these resources. And I'm so proud to admit that now I'm going to have a job when I get out of here. In November, I'm actually going to get my 6-month sobriety pin from AA. And I think Billy's actually going to be coming back soon because school will start and I can work. Honestly, if it wasn't for these nurses just caring for me, it wouldn't have worked out at all.
Really, really glad to hear that you had such a positive experience with nursing and that they really changed your life. So why don't we talk to these nursing theorists and see how the nurses in the hospital that really helped you so much used each of their theories. So Afaf, why don't we start with you?
Okay, well I just want to start off by saying I love your story, by the way. I'm so proud of you for getting through that. So my theory is the transition theory, like we talked about before. And I really feel like the theory was implemented through the nurses at the hospital. So how you went through all your changes, going from home to home, with your son being taken away, all that is transitions you're going through your life. And I think once you got into the hospital, the nurses did a really good job of, welcoming you in to the hospital and, being very supportive and just welcoming you in and having a very positive, vibe. I also think that, they did a good job of setting up, your discharge planning, and I think that helped with your transition in the hospital as well. You were able to go to your AA meetings, and you were successful in that, and that led you, to get your son back. And I think that was a really good smooth transition, and I think that helped you with your healing and your, overcoming your diseases and getting your son back. And I feel like those transitions they played a very large role in your life, and that's how I can implement my theory to her situation.
That's really interesting. So the nurses almost bridged the gap between the hospital and her house.
Exactly, yes.
Awesome. That's really cool. Betty, how did the nurses apply your theory?
So in Miss Barnes' situation, the sickling wasn't the only factor that was causing her to have like a decreased level of wellness. So looking at other variables, so you have the physiological, her liver, her spleen, they were not doing too well, they weren't in the best conditions. Looking at her psychological, I know you're emotionally not feeling well, you're distant from your son, that's very hard. I can just imagine like all the emotions that you have while you're sitting there in your hospital bed. Looking at your developmental, you mentioned, achieving your sobriety through A&A while you're still staying at the hospital, and just having that goal there. And also looking at the sociocultural, so your living space now, and even your, just looking at your whole situation as a whole, like the sickling wasn't the only thing that was putting all that stress on you.
So the nurses helped her create like almost coping mechanisms to deal with those stressors. That's really cool. And Florence, how did they apply? The nurses apply your theory?
Well, I'm sure the nurses did a great job of applying my theory based on the infection control and the protective equipment they were wearing whenever they visited Shantae. So how were they dressed, or what were they wearing when they came in to visit you? Did you notice anything like washing their hands when they came in, leaving your room?
Yeah, there's a couple times, almost every interaction, when they walked in, they were rubbing their hands and getting sanitizer.
Yeah.
And they also have gloves whenever they would touch me or assess me, I guess is what you call it.
Yes.
Yeah. As well as whenever they leave, they'd also clean themselves too, which I thought was amazing, just for everyone's safety. It's
Right,
really cool.
exactly. So that's super important because it's preventing transferring nosocomial infections, which are basically hospital-acquired infections, to you, or taking any like infections that you have and leaving your room with it. So that was really important. I'm really glad they took that from my theory. As well as the environment you were in, I'm sure the hospital environment was a lot more clean, than obviously where you're living right now. I know it's not the greatest, but the fact that you made all these changes, even though the environment you're in at home isn't the best, is really important. And I think taking that from my theory and realizing that an optimal environment space really helps your process of healing. That's amazing, and I'm really glad you're doing well now.
Thank you so much.
So Florence and I were talking before we had this show today, and we thought that because the nurses did such a good job of creating an environment to help you get even more healthy, it doesn't make sense for you to go back to the basement that you were living in that sort of contributed to being so sick, right? So we decided that you would really benefit from a basement renovation. So we're going to have our crew, the Hellen crew, we're going to come in and completely renovate your basement to make it so that you can stay healthy, okay?
My heart.
Also, just while we're giving some stuff away, I just wanted to say that we're also going to be donating $10,000 to the hospital that you went to, just to support those nurses so they can hire more nurses and start some more programs to even further apply these theories because they did such a great job. So it's really awesome.
Tune in next week as Hellen interviews the cast of Stranger Things. Have a great day, and remember to be kind to one another.